Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. If you are new to my channel, welcome. For today's video, I will share my experience of visiting Alcatraz Island. I went on a tour and it's such a beautiful place to visit. If you ever have the opportunity to visit San Francisco, I definitely recommend to check this out. Well, let's start with the adventure. I'm getting off the ferry that took me to Alcatraz Island. In 1905, the Army used inmate labor to add 3 concrete stories on top of the original dock level, built in 1860. The finished structure, known as Building 64, served as quarters for soldiers assigned to prison guard duty. You can form your own opinions and explore the island's mysterious, for it does indeed have a mysterious presence, one shaded by the uses to which society has put it. This island in the heart of San Francisco Bay, just a mile and a quarter from the sights and sounds of one of the world's most beautiful cities, has been used for a fort, a lighthouse, and a prison. Today, it is one of the national parks at the Golden Gate, and the National Park Service is working to make it accessible to visitors, preserve its buildings, protect its birds and other wildlife, and tell its history. On November 9, 1969, a small group landed on the island and claimed it in the name of the Indians of all tribes. Salt-laden, cold wind, rocky ground, and a scarcity of fresh water originally limited the number and types of plants on Alcatraz. Covered with the thinnest skin of soil, it supported only spare grass and a few shrubs. The absence of 4-footed predators, however, made Alcatraz a haven for birds, and they built nests and reared their young here in great numbers. When military development began in the mid-1800s, much of the rock blasted from the surface and sides of the island during the construction of buildings and gun batteries. Eventually, it came to rest at its shoreline. This created tide pools that now provide homes for thriving populations of crabs, sea stars, and other marine animals. In turn, these creatures improved the diet of many of the seagoing birds who were recognizing on Alcatraz Island. The Army also got some soil to Alcatraz from Angel Island, piling it around gun emplacements to protect them from incoming shells. This soft dirt provided a base for native California plants, whose seeds had hitchhiked to Alcatraz in the imported soil. The military also planted a variety of plants to keep the island's new surface from sliding or blowing away. As time passed, inmate gardeners and the families of soldiers and correctional officers planted flowers and vegetable gardens, bushes, and trees. After the federal prison was closed, the unintended plants began to take over. Today, they spill out of the garden's original boundaries over cement walls and down the slope. Now, the plants provide food and shelter for mice, slender salamanders, and insects, which, in addition to the plants themselves, attract birds. The 3-story cell house included the 4 main cell blocks: warden's office, visitation room, the library, and the barber shop. Alcatraz was to be operated on the principle of very limited privileges to inmates. The privilege of having visitors was to be earned. No visitors were to be allowed during convicts' first 3 months, and then only 1 visit per month. Regular meetings of a parole board were not to be scheduled, and no parole officer was to be appointed. No welfare work was to be undertaken. There would be no direct commitments from the courts to Alcatraz. Prisoners were to come only by transfer from other institutions. Inmates could obtain lawyers only after the written permission of the Attorney General. Inmates were granted 1 visit per month, and each visitation had to be approved directly by the warden. No physical contact was allowed, and rules dictated that inmates were not allowed to discuss current events or any matters concerning prison life. Inmates talked with visitors via intercom, and a correctional officer monitored the conversations during each of the majority of the time. Having inappropriate conduct during visits would result in a loss of visiting and/or other privileges. Quick question: how many cells do you think were inside the prison? FYI, there were 336 cells in B and C block. NPS states that there were originally 348, but 12 were removed when stairways were installed at the end of each cell block. There were 36 segregation cells and 6 solitary confinement cells. 2 cells on the end of C block were used as restrooms for the guard staff. The cells in A block were only used a few times for short-term lockup periods when an inmate did not require full solitary confinement to exclusion, but needed to be fully isolated for other inmates. Each cell in B and C block were 5 feet by 9 feet. Cells at Alcatraz had a small sink with cold running water, a small sleeping bed, and a toilet. Most men could extend their arms and touch each wall with their cell. The cells in D block were more spacious, but built the least popular. In D block, inmates were confined to their cells 24 hours per day, with the exception of 1 visit per week to the recreation yard, and these visits were alone. What did inmates dislike most about Alcatraz? The common theme expressed by most inmates was the rule of silence, which was discontinued in the late 1930s. In the earlier years of Alcatraz, inmates were not allowed to talk to one another, except during meals and the recreation periods. Some inmates commonly emptied out the water from their toilets and created a primitive communication system through the sewage piping. This rule was considered harsh, and inmates were disciplined for even minor violations of this code. Inmates also state that the island was very cold. Most agree that cells on their higher tiers with window views were more popular since they tend to be warmer than the ground level cells. The prison library was located at the end of D block. On entering Alcatraz, every inmate received a library card and a catalog of books found in the library. An inmate would order a book by putting a slip with their card in a box at the entrance to the dining hall before breakfast, and a librarian took the order to and from their cell. Mail privileges were to be limited. No original letters were to be delivered to prisoners, only a typed copy of letters received. Newspapers, magazines, radios, and other forms of entertainment were all prohibited. However, some inmates attempted to escape the island. On June 12, 1962, the routine early morning bed check turned out to be anything but. 3 convicts were not in their cells: John Angeline, his brother Clarence, and Frank Morris. In their beds were clearly built dummy heads made out of plaster and real human hair that apparently fooled the night guards. The prison went into lockdown and an intensive search began for them. The dummy heads were arranged to fool the guards into thinking the inmates were asleep. The group had begun laying plans the previous December when one of them came across some old saw blades. Using crude tools, including a homemade drill made from the motor of a broken vacuum cleaner. Behind the cells was a common unguarded utility aisle. They made their way down this aisle and climbed to the roof of their cell block inside the building. This is where they would set up a secret workshop. Then, they would take turns watching for the guards in the evening before the last count. They used a variety of stolen and donated materials to build and hide what they needed to escape. At the same time, they were looking for a way out of the building. The ceiling was a good 30 feet high, but using a network of pipes, they climbed up and eventually pried open the ventilator at the top of the shaft. They kept it in place temporarily by fashioning a fake bolt out of soap. The escape. On the evening of June 11, they were ready to go. The prison informant, though, did not have his ventilator grill completely removed and was left behind. The 3 others got into the aisle, gathered their gear, climbed up and out through the ventilator, and got on the prison roof. Then they shimmed down the bakery smokestack at the rear of the cell house, climbed over the fence and snuck to the northeast shore of the island and launched their raft. What happened next remains a mystery. Did they make it across the bay, get to Angel Island, and then cross straight into Marin County as planned? Or did the wind and waves get the better of them? All this is still a mystery. All of the prison population, including the guards and officials, would dine together, those seating over 250 people. The food served at Alcatraz was reportedly the best in the United States prison system. A menu board is still preserved on the hallway board dated 21 March 1963. The breakfast menu included assorted dry cereals, steamed whole wheat, a scrambled egg, milk, fruit, toast spread, and butter. Lunch was served in the dining hall, followed by a 30-minute rest in the cell before returning to work. At the end of each 20-minute meal, the forks, spoons, and knives were laid out on the table, carefully counted to ensure that nothing had been taken as a potential weapon. The Army built the morgue in 1910, and the building remained intact through the time of the modern prison. However, it never saw much use. During the prison years, the morgue was used just once to store a deceased prisoner overnight until a ferry could take the body to the mainland the following morning. Done with the tour, and now I'm heading back to the ferry. In this tour, there's definitely a lot of walking, so be prepared. Bring very comfortable shoes, comfortable clothes, a light jacket because it gets very cold. Also, there's a lot of flies around the island, so FYI. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys liked it. I really enjoyed visiting Alcatraz Island. If you have the opportunity, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.